You know, am I raving?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I'll be yours, baby, tonight.
I'm Bob Ingram. I'm a long-term resident of Coconut Grove. Vince Martin brought me to the Grove. Vince and I met in the early 60s. He was a folk singer that came down from Greenwich Village, and we got the idea to open up a coffee house, and we did actually open one up just outside of the Grove, up Douglas Road, almost to Coral Way. And I fell in love with the Grove. I fell in love with the lifestyle. I was fresh out of the Navy and fresh off the merchant marine ships, and I had lived in the Navy in Key West for the whole time I was in the military, so I started to become enchanted with that particular style of architecture as opposed to the cookie cutter stuff that was all over Miami in the early 50s, the standard 3.2s that they were building. Now they've got bigger, higher cookie cutters, but they're still, I think they're designed by the same software designer as the guy that wrote the first one, you know.
So in 25 words or less, if someone who never does know anything about Coconut Grove, just physically, visually, how would you describe it?
Come visit, then leave.
But how would you describe it?
How would I describe Coconut Grove? For me, the most ideal place that I could imagine to live. It's amazing that a community like this could still exist even in its destroyed state, this close to a major community like Miami. I mean, it's surprising that it isn't all gone, because the way these rapacious bastards are going, it is all going to be gone. It's paradise. Look around you. You know, you got bougainvillea, you got frangipani, you got palms, you got bamboo, you got hibiscus, you got a national termite preserve such as I live in here, my wooden home. And the reason we fell in love with this house was because we wanted this kind of house. When we first came to the Grove, Gay and I, when we got married, we wanted to live in an old wooden house. And so that's where we've lived our life out and raised our kids, right here on this property here on Palmetto Avenue, you know. I hate the thought of selling it because the next guy's going to doze it. And he's not going to have a bit of heart about it. He's not going to save any of it. He's not going to know that I hand varnished all of this teak and mahogany and these floors that I did by hand. And they're not going to know that I built these gardens. And it doesn't matter to those people. None of that matters to these people. These people are strictly money driven. You know, and they are rapacious in their desire to take it all. I feel like a Navajo, you know, with the white guys coming. I really do, you know. And there's a wonderful book by a guy named David Abrams, and he talks about connection to place and home. And there's a little passage about the Cherokees going to Arizona, to Oklahoma on the Trail of Tears. And it really was the Trail of Tears, because they probably cried all the way, because they were leaving what they were connected to, genetically, geographically, in every way. They were connected to this place, this home, you know. And I feel the exact stupid, altruistic, emotional way about it that they probably did. I have no qualms about my altruism, you know. I consider it a compliment to be called a tree hugger, also to be called a bleeding heart liberal.
So describe the spirit of the Grove people when you first got down here. And you got to talk more to me.
There were, I'm sorry, yeah. There were artists that were actually functional artists that I remember when I first came here. Guys like Grail Douglas, Michael Loca, Tony Scornavaca, Masson, Gene Masson. I'll leave names out, I'm sorry. But they were artists living on the cheap in little cottages for $75 a month. I don't think that an artist living in an $800,000 loft on Grand Avenue is going to have to. He's going to have to be some guy from New York that's in commercial arts. I mean, what, you know, the struggling artist it's an anachronism. It doesn't, you know, certainly exist in this town. You know, I mean, and if it does, I don't know them. You know, they might be.
Do you think there's a spirit of the old Grove left still in the Grove today?
A waning spirit, I would think, of the old Grove. You know, it's funny. I know people that have rental properties here in the Grove, and they cherish some of these old buildings, and they're so proud of these old restored things. And when some guys come over and they look at it, they say, "It's not what I want. I want glass. I want I want stainless steel. I want marble. I want I want European kitchens. I want that's great. You know. Yeah, I'm bitter. I'm a dinosaur. I'm proud of it. Most of my dinosaur friends have already left. They're in Oregon. They're in Mexico. God forbid.
There's a bunch of us that are still here because we still love the Grove.
Because I'm clinging to a fantasy. It's not a real fantasy, and eventually they'll either run me out, eminent domain me, as the Supreme Court just approved of. You know. By the way, somebody went up to Souter's house and said, "We're going to eminent. This house would be much better as a hotel, so we're going to eminent domain you." How's that for turnaround? You know. How's that for backlash? You know. I mean, the world's upside down. You know. We got the commander-in-chief of a large military organization that never actively served in the military, but he got the balls to call himself the commander-in-chief. I'm ashamed of him. I'm ashamed of all of us for him, you know. I'm crotchety, I'm cantankerous, I am a curmudgeon, and I got that way one bad piece of architecture at a time. And if this place had a department of taste, you know, if I won the lottery, I'd be an undeveloper. I would buy properties and tear them down. I would, and plant trees, you know. How's that for an altruistic attitude? That'd lose me some money. You know, I'm into losing money. I've lost money all my life. You know, money's not been what's driven me, ever. The Grove scene was almost happened overnight. You were here. You saw a lot of it happen. It was, first of all, it was Florida. It was winter. All those folk musicians, and they were all working for $10 a night, $15 a night. I remember when Joni Mitchell came down to the Gaslight, I think she was making $15, $150 a week, you know. And when she sang at the Flick, the owner used to ask her, why don't you sing songs that people know? And it turns out that people know them now, you know. But Joni was here. She came with her husband, Chuck Mitchell, who was another performer. Vince Martin called all of his friends in New York in the Village, and guys like Fred Neil showed up, and Tom Rush came in from Boston. David Crosby's lived here for off and on for a few years. David and I wound up in California together playing music in a little folk group before the Byrds was founded. David stayed to become a rock star, and I came home to become a father. I had a baby, and my wife and I had a baby, and then Gay and I married, and Liam lived with us, and grew up here in this house in the Grove. Bryn, our daughter, was born in San Francisco, but we didn't stay in California. I moved to California twice, and both times I stayed, almost a year. But I always came home. I always came back to the Grove. Grove is home. Coconut Grove is home. It's not home to a lot of people here. I think it's just an investment opportunity, and I guess it's okay to make a buck, but I don't think they should make a buck by destroying what we revere. We're dealing with this now with the so-called Freedom Tower, which I choose to call the Miami News Building. They're going to tear it down, wrap a high-rise around it. They're going to wrap a high-rise around a Taurus. Ralph Monroe would be spinning in his grave if he were alive today, Ralph Monroe built the Taurus so his daughter would have a little business to run. It was called the Tea Cozy, and it was a little tea house. And then it became, when I came here, it was called the La Casita Tea Room. And Dave Hill bought it in the 70s and created the Taurus. And he created a pub culture that lasted for, 30 years? I'm a pub person. I sing in bars. I like bars. I grew up in bars when I was a kid in New York before I came down here in the 50s. I'm very comfortable in bars. And the Taurus being that central focal collection point for people to come and see one another. And that was not just about having drinks. I mean, it was about a social life. And this is paradise, and it's paradise lost. The place is a sold-out show. It's been a sold-out show. I've been in the theater business all my life. When the theater's full, you stop selling tickets. But that's not this place. They sell tickets to a place that's full. Excuse my rantings and ravings, but you asked my opinion.
What do you think of the Home Depot?
Home Depot, I love Home Depot. But I love Shell Lumber more because Shell Lumber is a neighborhood business run by a neighbor of mine, Paul Naran, who's not just a friend, and I would support him anyway. Home Depot's wonderful. Costco's wonderful. Put them in industrial parks someplace, out where industrial parks go. Plop them down in the middle of a community that's so overdriven now. You got ethnic cleansing going on in Grand Avenue. You want to call it something else? Call it gentrification. I call it ethnic cleansing. The one developer owns all the apartment houses on Grand Avenue now. And where are those people going to go? Some reservation, probably. And it's a shame because that's a big part of the Grove heritage. All those Bahamian families that came over, those names are legendary in the Bahamas. You see those old names. You go all over the islands. You go to the Abacos. Those names are there. And that's going to go for what? For the buck? for the mighty dollar. You know, so how inconvenient to have a black neighborhood between Coral Gables and Coconut Grove. How bloody inconvenient. You know, and so it goes. And I'm 67 years old. I've seen the best of it. You know, I've seen the best of it. And they will build their Home Depot. They will build it. You know, I've been trying to pull down high rises with a 10-speed bike since 1960. I remember one of the first benefits we did at the Gaslight, when we had the Gaslight on Grand Avenue. And you're talking hippie kids. Somebody said, we're going to do a benefit. What's the benefit for? Save the Grove. From what? I don't know, but it's coming. And it's here. Now we got it. They didn't even know what was coming. Now we got it. You know, we got these lion commissioners telling us that they're going to do right. You go to those things and they play their little parliamentary chess games and everybody walks out frustrated and then everybody starts telling everybody else, hey, have hope, don't despair, don't despair. I saw 11 high-rises on the horizon, don't despair. But everybody can't live here, just like Oregon said. You know, have a nice time, now go home. That's what they said in Oregon. You know, love it, come see, come visit us. Now go home and make your home as nice. Why shouldn't all of Miami be as beautiful as Grove? Because of what? Trees. And I'm not talking about banyans. You know, but trees. You know, Haiti'd be heaven if it had trees. If they hadn't smoked them all and used them to, you know, to make charcoal. You know, any part, you could make Opelika as beautiful as Coconut Grove with a committed community base. I was at graduation at Ransom recently, and I heard the head of school over there jokingly referred to the tree huggers of Coconut Grove. Jokingly referred to the tree huggers. She's been here a year and a half, and she'll be gone in 3 more years. And she'll be someplace else. Bye-bye. But in the meantime, those of us that are committed will stay here. But, you know, there used to be a tree there, or there used to be a tree there, you know. Banyans come down in hurricanes. I'm not in love with banyans. But bamboo stays up, and Dade County pine stays up, and raw palm stays up, and all in the native indigenous, the oaks, Florida oaks, probably the rosewoods and the mahoganies, if there were any left, you know, they'd probably stay up in a blow, you know. Ficus tree's got the root system of Velcro, you know, I mean, it comes over, pink, it's over, you know, a little bit of wind knocks it over, so I'm not in love with, you know. But it was a good idea when they brought it down. Everybody was fascinated with them. They're cute, you know. They belong in India, where they're from. You know, am I raving?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I'll be all